Okay, so here we are, brothers and sisters. It's April 26, 2024, and I'm in Blythe, California. And inside my van, this is where I've been living now in this van for 2 years. Before that, it was a Jeep Grand Cherokee for 7 years. And just to give you an idea of what it's like in here, this is the interior of the van, okay, and it's all insulated. And the reason for this little emergency blanket is when I put that up there and secure it to the ceiling, then I can turn on my AC and be comfortably cool inside this little space here that you can take a look at. This is the exhaust pipe from the air conditioning unit. The air conditioning unit is right over here. And right about here is my bed. And this is my little palace. I consider it my little palace because compared to some homeless people out there, and especially the Palestinians, it's hard to imagine how some people actually live under those conditions, how they can stay happy, how they can have hope in life. It's just beyond imagination. So I thank the good Lord for everything I have, and I thank especially Bob Barber for helping me out, and Greg Messina. In my time of need, they came through. So God bless them and their families. This little presentation is very ad hoc. It's a bit of a potpourri. I don't want it to be a polished, presentation with a studio background and everything else. I'd rather have it like this because time is very short, okay? It's a bit like, getting your bug out bag ready and just taking off. That's how I feel about these little presentations. But I am going to be sharing my screen here. I've got some pictures I want to show you of different news events that are happening that just sounds the alarm. I mean, if you're not getting it by now, there's something wrong. The birth pains. We talk about the birth pains. I have been in delivery rooms with my ex-wife when she was delivering. I've been there 6 times. We both went through it. We went through prenatal classes to, train her breathing and everything else. And I was there by her side, and I know what the labor pains are like and what the delivery is like, okay? So we got a dog in the background, but that's okay. Par for the course. We're always going to get interruptions. We're always going to get the cares of this world trying to sidetrack us, right? And I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm moving forward, full steam ahead. Let's start off with this one here. This is a puppy, and you probably are aware that the Humane Society is very concerned about, abandoned animals. This is the kind of concern we have here in America for animals. We treat them with kid gloves. We don't want them to be hurt. We don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to be lost. But you compare that to what's happening in Gaza, and it's a totally different story, okay? So the people that are supposedly responsible for Gaza have gone totally off the deep end, and we've got protests all over in the U.S. protesting the treatment of these poor Palestinians. And I'm going to show you here one little video of a Jew, a Holocaust survivor, giving it as it is, laying it all down.
Brave student protesters in America is just keep doing it, don't give up. We are doing exactly the same, and in the long term, we are going to prevail. I'm out from the beginning at every march, a small group of survivors and descendants of survivors demonstrate disagreement with the use of the Holocaust experience as a cover by the Zionists and the State of Israel.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s.
The way that the Israeli government is using the memory of the Holocaust in order to justify what they are doing to the Gazans is a complete insult to the memory of the Holocaust. And we stand repeated in the last few demos carrying placards hanging from the neck saying this survivor of the Holocaust is against the genocide in Gaza. And we also demonstrate against the conflating of Jewishness with Zionism, which is what the Israeli state is trying to do, which does nothing else but increases anti-Semitism. So we are trying to counter that by demonstrating that Jews and Holocaust survivors are against that. We have tremendously warm reception and appreciation from the typical members of the march. We get handshakes and hugs, and some people stand and some women cry seeing the placards. It's a great and warm experience. When the right-wing section of the present government is trying to press for the banning of these marches on the grounds that they create no-go areas for Jews and they are anti-Semitic, we know that this is complete rubbish. And the very opposite is true. Today's marches are having a very hopeful aspect, that it is so large, so persistent, so global, that eventually the Western leadership, which are trying to deny what is actually going on, will be forced to face up to it. And I think we are not far from that. I think there was no parallel to that in the Jewish Holocaust experience. In fact, there was great abandonment, certainly from the leadership of the country. There were some, very few, very brave people who risked everything to be on the right side of history.
Okay, so I think you get the idea here that this whole notion that you have to resort to anti-Semitism or to other, tropes like the Holocaust basically it's basically an insult to the memory of those who died under the hands of the Nazis. It's desecrating their graves. Okay, now here's another little video I want you to take a look at. This is by the famous Senator.
No, Mr. Netanyahu, it is not anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas to point out that in a little over 6 months, your extremist government has killed 34,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 78,000, 70% of whom are women and children. It is not anti-Semitic to point out that your bombing has completely destroyed more than 221,000 housing units in Gaza, leaving more than 1 million people homeless, almost half the population. It is not anti-Semitic to note that your government has obliterated Gaza's civilian infrastructure, electricity, water, and sewage.
מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים
It is not anti-Semitic to realize that your government has annihilated Gaza's healthcare system, knocking 26 hospitals out of service and killing more than 400 healthcare workers. It is not anti-Semitic to condemn your government's destruction of all of Gaza's 12 universities and 56 of its schools, with hundreds more damage, leaving 625,000 students with no educational opportunities. It is not anti-Semitic to agree with virtually every humanitarian organization in saying that your government, in violation of American law, has unreasonably blocked humanitarian aid coming into Gaza, creating the conditions in which so many thousands of children face malnutrition and famine. Mr. Netanyahu, anti-Semitism is a vile and disgusting form of bigotry that has done unspeakable harm to many millions of people. But please, do not insult the intelligence of the American people by attempting to distract us from the immoral and illegal war policies of your extremist and racist government. Do not use anti-Semitism to deflect attention from the criminal indictment you are facing in the Israeli courts. It is not anti-Semitic to hold you accountable for your actions.
So that speaks for itself. That speaks volumes for itself. Look, I love Jews. I love the Jewish people. I love the Jewish nation. I love the nation that represents goodness, wholeness, a belief in God, a trust in the Lord Almighty, in making sure that people live by the Ten Commandments. Okay, these are the morals that have guided Israel and the Jewish state back in the old days, in the Old Testament. Well, we have to remember that the Lord Almighty was very angry at Israel back in the day, and he brought upon a lot of destruction on Israel because, why? They had forgotten the good Lord and his commandments. And so it is today. I mean, we just have to take a look here. I mean, this is what happened at this rave dance outdoor party that they had on October 7th. They have a statue of Buddha. I mean, what are you thinking? You Israelis, you Jews, you think that this is what God wants you to have? Let's think about that for a minute, okay? Are you worshiping other gods? Is that what it is? Is that what you're telling God? And here we go. I mean, it's a well-known fact that Tel Aviv has become the gay capital of the world, okay? And this is from the Jerusalem Post. We have all kinds of evidence that Israel has become a secular nation. It's no longer a God-fearing nation. When you have the Carlton in Tel Aviv, propping itself up as the ultimate gay Tel Aviv center, resort, what more do you need, right? It's a well-known fact that this is the gay capital of the Middle East, if not of the world. Do you think that God has an issue with that? Do you think that maybe God has an issue with the so-called nation of Israel that has been hijacked by Zionists, these secular, atheistic, Kabbalistic, almost spawn of Satan that have draped themselves in the Israeli flag, that have taken umbrage under the race of the Jews. They claim to be Jews so that they have no pushback from the world. They claim that they are God's anointed because they don't want to have anything, said about them that might put a curse on those who utter these expletives on them. But this is really Satan's plan. He is positioning Israel right now to become the epicenter for the Antichrist. The Antichrist wants a nation that is completely void of any moral compass, that is completely void of godliness, holiness, and will allow him to build his temple so that he can proclaim himself God to the whole world. This is a setup. This is why all this is happening now with the Palestinians, okay, these crimes against humanity. This is part and parcel of the Luciferian agenda to mock God, to thumb their nose at his face. And then you got the World Economic Forum that is all about health and safety and, this false narrative that they're all about humanity, that is ready to introduce digital currencies into the world in central banks. This is as of April 2024. The report has come out. The WEF says that 98% of global central banks are exploring CBDC to enhance commerce, access, and modernization of commerce, supposedly, when it will be another social credit system like they have in China. Okay? I mean, the World Health Organization is right behind this gene editing program, the Human Genome Editing Program. They would love to go ahead with transhumanism and all that is implied with that. I mean, they are calling for a 24-hour monitoring of the public. Monitoring of what? Of all your signals in your body, of all the health risks that you may have, of all the medicines you are taking, of everything that is going in and into your body, and of your state of health, your mental state, everything. This is part and parcel of the Great Reset. Okay? And in order for all this to happen, you're going to have a total meltdown of the economic system, the political system. You're going to have the Antichrist ushered in order to implement these measures, because people will flock to all this as a way out of their misery. And the rapture has to happen first. That we know. In the meantime, we have this polemic here in the Middle East. Now we have North Korean officials making friends with Iran. And then we have China that fully covers and supports Iran. And it's a warning to the U.S., it's a warning to Israel. Don't step on Iran's toes, okay? Stay out of it. Now, in Israel, the political arena is going to be like the Colosseum here, okay? In ancient Rome. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be very upset with the politicians in the Knesset. As you can see here, Israel's national security minister is getting a lot of flack. Okay? And of course, Netanyahu really, although he talks about releasing the hostages, he doesn't care about the hostages, because the hostages would tell the truth about the fact that IDF was actually firing on Israelis on October 7th. So they don't want the hostages out. That's the last thing they want. And this is a video that was published by Hamas recently of a Israeli hostage held in Gaza by Hamas, telling the world that Israel in fact bombed and killed 70 captives, that's Israeli hostages that were kept in Gaza. And that's why we have more protests now. There's going to be increased demonstrations. There's going to be all kinds of havoc. Economic meltdown. There's talk now of thousands upon tens of thousands of supposed dual citizen Israelis leaving Israel to go to other nations. They don't want to be part of this meltdown. Egypt has warned Israel, stay away from Rafah. It would be a catastrophic set of events that would be set off. And who knows what Israel would be facing then. How the world's wrath would be completely off the charts. Somebody's going to have to hold Israel accountable. Somebody is going to have to make that move. And of course we know that Netanyahu is up to no good. He wants to survive. He wants to stay in power as long as he can. The only way he can do that and distract the world is by fueling the fire, by increasing the mayhem, by completely abandoning all rules and protocols, all conventions, and going full bore into Rafah and possibly into Iran. He may even use the Samson option where he will destroy the rest of the world if he feels like he's going down. That's his last option. If he thinks that he has nowhere else to hide, that they're going to be issuing warrants, arrest warrants for him, he is going to pull that nuclear option out of the bag and push the nuclear button. And that, my friends, is when the Lord might take us up into the rapture. What's about to come down on Israel is going to be horrific, especially now that Israel is getting ready to crush Hamas in Rafah, supposedly. What it really amounts to is collective punishment. They're going to be killing innocent Palestinians like they've done in other parts of Gaza. And the world is going to go amok. It's going to be the trigger for other nations like Egypt, like Syria, Lebanon, and Iran, North Korea perhaps, Russia, China, to come down on Israel heavy. Here's a sad, sad picture. An elderly Palestinian couple looking at their home occupied now by Israelis, by Zionists. Imagine walking by your old house and looking into it and seeing some people who kicked you out and took over your home because they feel it is their right to live in there. What would you do? If that was you, what would you do? And I keep track of UNRWA's latest reports. You can go to their website and get the latest report of what's going on in Gaza, and they'll tell you, basically, it's not good. The reports we're getting is that there's going to be more famines, more deaths, more bombings, more extermination of the Palestinians. And of course, Germany has resumed funding of UNRWA, and Israel detests now Germany for doing that. Israel has no desire to help the Palestinians survive this. It is not in Israel's best interests, and that is why God loathes with a fury Israel. In the meantime, on April 24th, we learned that Iran is only weeks away from getting its own nuclear missile, if it hasn't already bought them from China or Russia. We have reports that now strategic targets deep in Russia are being targeted by Ukrainian missiles. What do you think Russia is going to do? It's not going to sit back. It's going to have to pull the trigger. It will pull the trigger on NATO nations. In the meantime, Egypt will not allow Palestinians to come into Egypt, to the Sinai Peninsula. He does not want that headache. It is up to Israel and the rest of the world to accommodate the Palestinians, to give them a home. But Israel is hell-bent on destroying, exterminating the Palestinians. That has been its mission. It's not so much about Hamas. If it's worried about Hamas, imagine how many new Hamas soldiers it'll have in 10, 20 years to worry about with the destruction that it has wreaked on Gaza now. You think these little children will forget what happened to them when they were growing up? They had no school to go to? Think twice. And so, my friends, the birth pains are getting more frequent, more intense. You have to realize we are living at the end of the end times, basically. And as watchers, as watchmen, watchwomen, we are looking for the weather patterns. We're looking for what's happening in the horizon here with the rest of the world. What could possibly go wrong next? And how would the Lord intervene and rescue his bride? Rapture those who truly have placed all their faith and trust in him, who love him with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love their neighbor as themselves, who do everything they can to help others with what they can. Okay? Now, it is your heart that he's looking at. Your heart. How is your heart? Is your heart humble, meek, submissive, mild? Is it a haughty heart? Is it a, me, myself, and I kind of heart? What kind of heart do we have here? And also, you have to also realize, and this is, taking a little bit deeper in theology, but when the Sanhedrin accused Jesus because he was calling himself the Son of God, right? He told them, he says, well, you're accusing me because I say I'm the Son of God. What about in the scriptures when the Lord called the people gods? When he called them gods, meaning what? Meaning that they are the children of God. They are the offspring of God. They are here on earth to learn, to be tutored, to be given an education so that they can take that with them, become a certain kind of person, and then move on to the next world so that they can be with God's family. Okay? Once you are immortal, once you have an immortal body, once you have no more death in your existence, you become a god, basically, because you have now all your faculties, you have all your health, and there's nothing stopping you from advancing further in your knowledge, in your character, okay? And so we are here primarily to become children of God, to be part of his family. Lucifer doesn't want that. Lucifer wants nothing to do with the atonement of Jesus Christ that wipes away all our sins and makes us brand new, gives us a new slate, a new heart. He doesn't want that. He wants us to remain focused on material things, on the cares of this world, on surfeiting, on, having more and more of this and that and the other, on being proud and being boastful, on fame and fortune and all the other accoutrements that the world offers, all the bling. That's what he wants. And people have sold their souls to get that. You do not want to be part of that tribe, okay? You want to have a heart that is clean, pure, like a child's. You have to rely on the Lord's atonement, his sacrifice, to wipe your heart clean, and he can do that. And everything will change in your life. Your countenance will change, your associations will change, everything will change. Your heart will be happier. You'll have a smile on your face. Even though you're going through turmoil, you'll still have hope and faith in the Lord God, and you'll have a peace in your heart. I can attest to that. So this is my message today. It's a little bit topsy-turvy, but I've got no time to make, professional presentations with a studio and a microphone and the rest of it. It is what it is. And the Lord, I think, accepts it for what it is and is not going to judge me for not taking better care of my studio set here, improvising better. All right? May God bless you all. Take care.